Hello, everyone. Welcome to Aerospace Federal Credit Union's webinar on Home Buying 101, everything you need to know about purchasing a home. And I'd like you to please note that the Q&A function button at the bottom of the Zoom application. During this Zoom webinar, attendees can ask questions using the Q&A function, and questions will be answered as time permits. And also, please note that this webinar is being recorded. By attending this webinar, you are giving permission to be recorded. If you do not want to be recorded, we request that you sign off this webinar at this point. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to introduce Mr. Jerry Jonas, Real Estate Lending Manager at Aerospace Federal Credit Union. Hi, Jerry.
Hey, thank you very much, Ian. I appreciate that. Well, let's get the ball rolling. We have a lot to cover in the next 30 or 60 minutes. We're going to start off by talking about some of the advantages and disadvantages, obstacles you may run into in owning a home. So let's continue on. First of all, there are tax benefits from owning it. The interest is currently, I'm going to say currently, I'm not a CPA, so I don't know what's changing and what hasn't, what will be changing in the future. But mortgage interest is still a deduction. The points are typically a deduction if, and I say typically, if you pay them outside of escrow, rather than including them in the escrow. Real estate taxes, your property taxes that you pay, are definitely a write-off. And energy credits, yes and no, probably depending on the area that you live in, as well as the office and home, which I believe that has kind of gone away this year from a tax standpoint. But then once again, you'll check with your accountant on that. Couple things that are kind of neat is you can withdraw money from your IRA account if you are a first-time home buyer. So you don't have to worry about the penalties associated with that. Also, another big advantage is you have a constant, that when I say P&I, and you'll see from time to time, I'll say P&I, which is principal and interest. If you see PITI, that's principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. That's all of everything all rolled into one ball there. But your payments will remain constant if you choose a fixed rate program throughout the life of that loan, be it 30 years or 15 years. The nice thing is that you're not going to be, compared to renting, you're not going to be moving around. You own your own home. You have established an area. You're familiar with the community. You know where your shop, all your shopping's done. And the nice thing about it is you get to know your neighbors. I mean, in my situation, I've been in my property for a long time, but I know all the neighbors on both sides of the street, and they kind of watch out for each other, which is kind of a neat thing. The schools are very important. A lot of times, some of the schools in a lot of the areas are designated as distinguished schools. They've received awards for their outstanding curriculum and how the teachers have performed and so on and so forth. And doctors, you get to know your doctors in a certain area. So if you move from one area to further away, then you have to start all over again and establishing some of these items. The neat thing is that if you have a family, excuse me, your kids will grow up in the area. They will get to know the friends that they have in school. And I've been, fortunate that both my kids have grown up in the home that I'm in currently, and they still have friends that they've made in elementary school all the way through, and they still get together and do things. So it's kind of neat that they've been able to establish some relationships there as well. And the important thing is that now you own a piece of property. You have a place of your own, which provides you with the financial security, the privacy, rather than living like in an apartment building or an apartment. You can do what you want. If you want to put a nail in the wall, go for it. If you want to, hang pictures, paint, anything, you don't need anybody's permission unless you're married. Then you can do what you wish. So it's kind of nice. And, landscape, if you want to do a garden or whatever, you're able to do some of those things. One of the big benefits, and I can emphasize this, that it is building up equity over time. That is so important. It gives you that little bit of a nest egg that you can draw on if you need to at any time, whether it be for your kids going to college, you get ready to retire, you'll have that equity in your property. And the nice thing is it gives you something very tangible to pass along to your children and your grandchildren. Obstacles. This is one of the major obstacles, is funds required to close. And we're going to talk about that a little later on. We'll give you an example of kind of what it should cost you to close your loan. But it isn't, you think, oh, I've got 5-10% down, whatever. You have to take into consideration the other costs associated with obtaining this loan. Another thing which has become a lot easier than what it used to be in the future are your lending standards. And we'll talk about debt to income ratio a little bit, so we can kind of get an idea of what this all means. But we work off of, when we're doing a real estate loan, we work off of your gross verifiable income. So, that makes it a lot easier, because I know a lot of loans, they're working off what your net income is. Then another one could be interest rates. Today's market, interest rates are not an obstacle. They are so low. I mean, back in the 40s, during World War II era, loans were right around 4%, 4.5%. But today we have them substantially lower than that. Loan costs are fairly low as well. So, all of this is, can create a little bit of an obstacle if the market should change. Right now, not so much. The other thing is trying to find, and this is a big one. I want to live in this house that's 6,000 square feet, 6-bedroom, 4 baths, so on and so forth. What I need is maybe a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. So you have to kind of look at what you can afford in a safe, location. And I'll talk about that a little bit, safe location and that once we get into looking for something. But it is important that you do your due diligence in scoping that out to find out what is a safe location. Okay, funds that are needed. Okay, this is the fun part. First, I'll kind of hit the two main categories here, and that's when I'm talking about cost, the non-recurring and the recurring. The difference between a non-recurring cost is it happens one time. When you're getting the loan, that's pretty much it. Recurring is something that's going to happen over the course of your loan. And, so that's where your differentiation comes from there. Down payment is a critical point, and we'll talk about down payment as we get a little further into the presentation. Going in with a down payment, with the county recorder's office. We have appraisal, which is a safeguard for you. When you purchase and interior, exterior, they will do if there's a major problem, some type of a safety issue, they will bring that up in their appraisal. What they do is they use comparable properties in your neighborhood, unless they finally have to have that a little bit. Most of the time, the home inspection. A lot of these properties seller decrease cost. Home inspection of the property is very important to make sure that the property is sound. The plumbing is good, the roof is good, You don't have all the windows open. You don't have any issues with the gas. Everything is safe. You have your smoke detectors, your CO detectors, the water heaters double strapped. Some states don't require all of those. In California, we do. So I would say home inspection, you would want the seller to cover. When you're making your offer, you would designate that. And the same with the termite report. Most homes, when during a purchase, will be tinted, where you've seen them, where you've driven down the street and it looks like a circus tent. That's when they are tinting the properties for termites and any other type of rodents that might be in there. So anyway, that is typically at the expense of the seller. If there's work that needs to be done, I would stipulate in my offer that the seller covers that as well. Now, the home warranty can be linked with your home inspection, because in order to get a home warranty, and what a home warranty is it's an insurance policy typically for 1 year, which can be renewed by you if it goes beyond that. And they cover anything that may happen to the property. If they do the inspection and they don't find anything, you move in and you find out that there's a leak in your plumbing and one of your water lines coming into the house. They will come out, they will repair it, no cost to you. If the roof leaks and they've certified that the roof is in good condition, they would cover that. As my son bought a piece of property and the heater, everything worked great. He moves into the property and it wouldn't work. Home warranty, you have the home warranty, they came out, replaced it at no cost. Okay. So that is something that I would really be diligent about putting that in my offer. The escrow settlement fees, not negotiable. Typically, the seller of the property will say it's going to go to this escrow, they're going to use this title company. You have no control over those fees. You can't typically go out and say, hey, I want to use XYZ instead of ABC. They won't let you do that. The courier overnight services, we use that to get documents back and forth. A lot of times they will have a mobile notary that will come out to sign the loan documents. Particularly with the COVID-19, that was a norm. They would send somebody out to your home to sign loan documents and then take it back to the escrow. What is a recurring cost? The recurring cost is anything, like I mentioned before, that was going to happen year after year. Hazard insurance. Now, the hazard insurance is the insurance that covers the structure of the property. It can also cover any liabilities if somebody gets injured. Next, the flood certificate is or on the perimeter of a flood. Earthquake insurance where you suffer from earthquakes from time to time. Real estate taxes. Real estate taxes might be over a year. And that's something that you would have to be prepared for, but you will have to pay that. Your taxes usually broken down into 2 installments. Prepaid interest, it starts off as prepaid interest, where you pay the interest on your loan to the end of the month you sign your loan documents. If we sign today, May 11th, I would be paying interest, prepaid interest, to the 31st of May. Once you do that, your first payment is going to be July. You got a full month in June where you wouldn't have a payment due, a mortgage payment. But in mortgages, you always pay your interest in the arrears. So when I make my July 1st payment in this particular case, I'd be paying my interest through June, all of June. So, that's another thing that you would want to take into consideration once you're closing this. Cash reserves, and we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But the worst thing to happen is you move into, you put all your hard-earned cash into it, and then you don't have any reserves if something should happen, or if you need to buy something. So we'll look at that, but and how much you should have in cash reserves. You don't put every single penny you have, because one of the big red flags that lenders find are first payment defaults, somebody not making their first payment. So anyway, we'll move on. Okay, now there's several different ways you'll see in which you can select a loan amount and an interest rate. I took today's scenario and I just like, okay, at 0 points for the interest rate, and I'm referring only to the interest rate, at 3% for 400,000, your payment would be $16.86.42. And if you wanted to buy your rate down, and I don't find this a lot with first-time home buyers because money is a little tight, but say you wanted to buy it down, it could cost you 4%, $4,000 or a little bit even more to buy it down 0.25%.
Excuse me, Jerry.
Yes.
I think you skipped a slide. I think there was a
Oh,
slide.
I did?
Yeah.
Oh,
go,
that was,
Pete, go back to slide.
There.
Yeah, that one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
Okay. Apologize for that. All right. I'm trying to get through this presentation quickly. But anyway, so here's a slide for funds required. And across the top, I've showed a loan or a purchase price in different areas in that, and what the loan amount would be with 5% down for each of those different purchase prices. So this gives you somewhat of a breakdown on what the cost would be. And remember, say, don't strap yourself for cash. This kind of helps you identify some of those costs that you're going to have to save for or include when you get ready to close the loan. The title, the title, lender's title insurance. These are all title insurance. These first two, lender's policy and an owner's policy. Lender's policy protects us as a lender, that there's no liens in front of us. It also protects you as well. No liens in front of our new first trustee. Okay, so a lot of times, like I said, people like to buy it now. It makes sense in some situations if this is your forever home and it's big enough, you're never going to outgrow it, and you're exactly where you want to be for the next 30 years or whatever. Then it could be worth your while to do this. However, that would be another fee that would be involved that you would have to take into consideration. So it costs you $4,000, let's say, as an example, and take the difference between what your payment would be at 3% and what it would be at 2.75, and you come up with a dollar amount of $53.46 per month. You divide that into, okay, I got my dollar amount wrong there. I see that now. I apologize for that. But you divide that into the $4,000, and it'll come out to about 6 years, 3 months, or could even be a little further before it starts to benefit you. Up until that time, it hasn't benefited you because you're just recouping what you paid to get the lower interest rate. All right, let's move on. Okay, some of the things that you need to do to kind of get organized for your loan, and this is something that you would want to do, and sometimes even realtors will ask for some data just to make sure that you can qualify. But you want to get all your income put together, whatever it may be.
Jerry?
Yes.
Excuse me, we have a question.
Okay.
Are title charges a percentage of the house price?
It's not a percentage of the house price. It is based on the loan amount, and there is a chart that shows like from maybe 100,000 to 150,000. This is what the cost is, and it graduates. So it would go up according to the loan amount. Okay. So back to our income and expenses, and I hope that did answer your question. is you'd get your information together. We always use the most recent 30-day pay stubs. If you are a salaried or working a salaried hourly employee and you're not self-employed. We get your W-2s for the last 2 years, your tax returns. If you're receiving any type of Social Security, you get a copy of the information. And we're going to get that. About the ratio, and there's some things that you don't use. Okay, then you want to look at your down payment. How much of your own funds you're going to put in. A lot of times, lenders will ask for you to have 5% of your own money in there. We want to verify that. We're not looking for a giant deposit into your account on a bank statement. We want to look at that and make sure that this is money that is actually your money. So we get a copy of your most recent bank statement. And if there is additional funds, if you're getting some type of a gift or whatever the case may be, then we're going to want documentation, and we'll talk about gift letters in just a second. Other documentation that we would require is if you have a trust and you want to put the property in the name of the trust, we want to look at the trust to make sure that the trust is set up, showing that you can actually borrow on real estate. Divorce decree, bankruptcy papers, any lien releases, if you had anything that might show up that would create a problem. If you're paying any child support, then we'd ask for the appropriate documentation for that. And this is what I mentioned before. You want to start lining up an insurance agent. You want to make sure that we have somebody set up that's going to be able to insure that particular property when we get to that point. And we can you don't have to pay for a policy till it alone, get further along on it, but you do want to make sure that you get an estimate on what the insurance will be. Okay, now what I talked about before is this is kind of scary, and I'm not going to go through all this because there's an awful lot of things here, but there are things that are included and things that are not included. When you're looking at income, we talked about that, but some of the other expenses in there may or may not be applicable. Under gross monthly expenses, you'll see that first grouping is going to pertain to the property that you're buying or purchasing. Then the other things that we include are credit cards. If they're going to run for 10 months or more based on what the payment amount is, that is incorporated into the total debt to income. Credit cards, automobile loans, first, if you have two, then we include both of those if they're going to be running for 10 months or more. Any installment loan that would fall into that same kind of a category. Then it gets down, if you have any other expenses that we need to know, because there's a area where you can put a check mark if any of those items are applicable. Then you come up with your total expenses. Take your total expenses divided by your total income, and that should not exceed 50%. So in other words, if I made $10,000 a month, the most I would be able to borrow with all those added in would be $5,000 a month. Okay. The residual. Okay. Residual is the difference, and that's what I have left over for my gross monthly income and my debts. So residual is covering anything else. Now, I'm going to mention something here, and it's listed in here, but I need to point it out because I think this is important. You don't want to be a slave to your property. You don't want everything to be going into expenses, and you have no time, no money to do any entertainment whatsoever. I want to go out to dinner. I want to go to a movie, or want to go to see something at the theater. I want to be able to have money for entertainment, because you don't want to be a slave to your property. Okay, so those are things that are not included in your expenses, all right? Shopping is always important. It's also doctors and protecting the airport is important if you do a lot of travel with your business. Children, want to look at the ages of your kids that are living at home. The gender, if they have any special needs, if you're going to be at some point in a situation where you have to take care of parents or something, are you going to be able to accommodate them in the property that you're buying? Pets, if you're looking for a pet, is a pet, you're not going to go out and get a German Shepherd and live in a condominium typically, because you got this big dog in a small or in a condominium, and you may or may not be able to let the dog out during the day. It's just, so you have to take that into consideration too. May end up getting cats, whatever. And the type of property you're looking for. And there's a single family detached property, typically has a nice backyard, so on and so forth. But if I'm traveling a lot, do I want that? Am I going to be, gone 2 weeks out of the month? Am I going to, want to have that burden of taking care of a yard and so on and so forth? Then you might be looking for a condominium or a townhouse. So, that weighs into it. Take into consideration that and keep up this around buying. Am I going to look for a new property, an existing property, or a fixer-upper? A fixer-upper, you'd have to take into consideration it's going to cost you some money, so you're going to make sure that you have reserves to do that. It probably will get you into an area where you might not be able to afford, an existing property, but so you may do that, fix it up, and, to your liking and so on and so forth. So you have to make that decision. 1 or 2 stories is important, depending a lot of times on your age. If you don't mind going up and down the stairs, and depending on what they have on the second story. Some people put the living area up on the second floor and the bedrooms and everything down on the first floor. So you have to kind of look at what your need is there, and you look at how many bedrooms am I going to need, and the bathrooms in that. A lot of times, people say, well, we're going to start a family. Well, then you might need a couple bedrooms, where you may not if you're already established in that. Bathrooms, the same thing. Excuse me. Whoops. What happened? I must hit my mouse. Okay. So you want to look at where you're at. You want laundry can be in a garage, it can be inside the house. You have to make that decision as what you want. Garage, attached, detached, all these different things. The size of your yard. If you're going to maintain it, well, that means you're going to get a lawnmower, edger. You might want to put, if it doesn't have sprinklers, you may want to get sprinklers. Looking at some things like that. If it's a gated community, which sometimes if you're doing a lot of travel in a gated community is not a bad thing. But anyway, one thing that you would want to look at a little bit. And then, like I mentioned before, the homeowners association dues for condos and townhouses. And even if you buy what they call a PUD, an urban development, then they would have dues that are due. Some of the things, if looking at a condominium, they might have have tennis courts or a pool and that. If you have little kids, you might want to look and say, am I close to the park? Do you need a fireplace or want a fireplace or air conditioning? Some of the areas, almost all the homes will come with air conditioning. Others may or may not, but you may live in an area that's a little bit cooler, but maybe because of if you're living close to the airport, you want to block out some of the noise, so you can close your windows. Might want air conditioning. Okay. Now, one thing on the bottom of this is something that you need to kind of budget for a little bit. you buy this home, maybe you're in a small 1-bedroom apartment right now. You don't have a lot of furniture in that, and you buy this 3-bedroom home and that, and you're going to want to put some furniture in it, whatever you want to do. So you want to budget, have a little bit of money to do some shopping, and maybe the colors with this color scheme isn't right that that they have in there, and you might want to have to buy sofas or whatever to to do that. But key, that last part, don't buy anything prior to closing your loan, because if something should happen and that loan falls out for one reason or another, you find something wrong structurally with the property, you don't want to buy it, you've got this furniture you were buying to put in that price, don't go there. Okay. Okay. Now, whether you buy a new or older property, you have to look at several different things here. You want to compare the size, the layout, different amenities that they may or may not have. You're going to have to fix it up a little bit. Like we said before, there's cost involved in that. But this next part, check out. If you get nothing else from this presentation, do this, please. Go out, check the neighborhood. Of the lawn, if nothing else, that's things you can read and go through. But I really recommend driving the property at the least at different times of the day. Check something out. Hence the schools, how they wasn't for your kids to get along. Is it a distinguished school? You need some thorough interview like that. So the realtor, the best thing to do, and I'm picking here, so I'm trying to speed up a tad. Try and find somebody that's maybe in the area, that knows the area pretty well, that would be able to help you. If you don't have a friend that is a realtor, or you're being referred to somebody that is very reputable, I would say find somebody in the area. Try and get some some information on the neighborhood schools. You can go to the city and talk to the Chamber of Commerce. Get some information. They'll give you great information there on some of the amenities in the area. Try and work, just work with the different people all the way through. Work with your lenders and any of the other parties that are in the transaction. Your realtor will help you, take you step by step through it. Should help you negotiate. Find, a lot of times they know that there's been other offers made on the property. They may be able to help you a little bit. They won't help you with the value because they don't, they're not legally able to do that. But just make sure finding the right realtor is very important too. All right. Okay, and as we talked about before, you want to make some contingencies in your offer. When you're submitting an offer, if there's something that you really like in that house, like maybe they've got this gorgeous chandelier that's hanging over the dining room or something like that, and you go, oh man, I wish I could keep. They may negotiate with you, even though that would be considered personal property. They might negotiate with you on that. But home inspection, like I mentioned before, please make sure that you do that, because they go through all those items that I have listed there. Termite report, you're going to get that. That's pretty much a standard. The home warranty, I say valuable, even if you have to pay, because it's like, you don't know what, it's like getting a new car and having a warranty with it. It'll cover a lot of your expenses in that. Now, this is important. This last one, motivational letter. One of the things that makes a difference in submitting an offer is to have a letter explaining why you want to buy this particular property. It's close to work, it cuts my commute in half. This school is great for my son or daughter. It's within walking distance, and the neighborhood, we want to buy in a nice neighborhood like this. It's like you just tell them, I'm planning on, you won't, you're not going to lie to them, but you're going to say, I'm planning on staying in this property. And people like to know, particularly if you have young kids and that, they want to know that a family's moving in here, and it's not going to be a piece of property that's going to be sold in 6 months or a year. Okay, so motivational letter, whatever your motivation is, go from the heart, put it on really nice. This way on the house looks like you want to go through all your make sure all your funds set up so you can wire those to escrow, get the escrow, so they will tell you exactly the amount that you need in order to close your transaction. Okay. Then you close your loan. You sign all your loan documents and that. You have all your money in there. The loan closes, it funds, and it records, and now the property is yours. You get the keys to your property, and now you become a property owner, and you have all the benefits that go along with that. One thing though to take into consideration if you're moving from wherever you're moving from is to make sure that you've already made arrangements with a mover, that they will be available when you're available to pick up your furniture and deliver it to the new property. Okay. Make sure you do a change of address with the post office. Anybody else that you want, a lot of times people will send out it's either like a housewarming or announcement saying, hey, we moved, we purchased a house, and here's the new address, here's our, whatever else. If you have to change phone numbers, whatever you need to do, this is where we're living now. And then you have the privilege of the first loan payment, which is it's good. You have to make sure that you don't overlook it. A lot of times people will set up auto pay where your payment comes out every month on whatever date you designate. So whatever you do, but it is mentioned in your documents. A lot of times people say, "Oh, I signed all my documents, but I don't know where it's at. I didn't realize I had a first payment." Okay, you will get a welcome letter from a servicing company, a loan servicing company, stating a lot of the details of this and where your payments are due and how to make your payments in that. All right. Okay, we talked about title insurance a little bit, hazard insurance, what it covers. Condo insurance is a little bit different. Condo insurance, you have what they call a master insurance policy. Master insurance policy is something that covers the structure of the development. So should something happen, should there be a fire or something, and they have structural damage to the unit itself. This HO6 policy covers what they call walls in, anything on the inside of your condominium or townhouse. It covers that. It is required by lenders, and you would have to pay that. So it's in addition to your condo master policy, this is inside the unit itself, but you can have substantial damage inside a unit as well as the outside. So you have to have that. Flood insurance, we talked about that. We get the flood certificate saying whether or not it is in a flood zone. If it is, then you would be required to have that. Now, one thing we didn't touch on is we mentioned it, but mortgage insurance. Mortgage insurance, different than hazard insurance. Mortgage insurance insures the lender up to a certain percent of the loan amount. And we go down to 78% from the sales price of the property. And we ask for insurance. So if you're at a 95% loan to value, you need to keep that in consideration. Only 5 or 10% of the mortgage insurance. So that would be a consideration as well. Okay. So now we get into the that happens. We want to when we transfer from whatever kind of data. Okay, we clear and do verification on that. Oops. Okay. Gift funds were received by the borrower. So then that's when we show the loan amount and interest rate, all the costs involved there. Members can shop for selected services. You can, it's on a purchase first time through, it's kind of tough, but if you shop for something, there's a variance that we're tied to. We're not tied to it if you shop for something. You will receive what they call a loan estimate, an LE, a loan estimate, once at the beginning of the transaction that shows all the cost involved in it. And like I say, there's a small tolerance if we give you a quote and it's not correct. Okay. We're going to get a HUD statement, which gives you all the cost compared, so you can compare it to, if you're shopping for a loan, compare it to anybody else. This is interesting. Shows you what makes up a FICO score, because your FICO score enters into the cost of the loan a little bit, but this outlines what emphasis is placed on what area as a percent in that. So not just having great credit is, with the payment history makes up, the book. If I always pay on time and everything, they look for other areas, the amount of money that you owe, any new credit, length of credit history, and some credit mix. So that makes up up your credit score, right? Okay, so these are some of the lending guidelines parameters. You can, borrow anywhere from 75,000 up to the conforming or the super conforming loan limits, which we have down below here. Owner occupied properties up to 2 units are considered owner occupied, not investment properties. Second home or vacation homes, not rental property. Can be an application fee. This is important. When you lock an interest, you're telling them that you are going to take that loan, agree to that, and they lock it for a given period of time. If it exceeds that period of time, it will cost you. If you cancel the loan after you have the interest rate locked, it will cost you. So you have to be, if we don't lock it in the action, then we're sure that you're going to be moving forward with it. So you have to make sure that you understand that, and it is spelled out in the agreement, and it's spelled out in several other documents that we sent to you. With us, maximum 95% is the loan to value, the combined loan to value. Maximum debt to income ratio, as we talked about, is 50%. If you go above 80% on your loan to value, not on your debt, on your loan to value, you will have to have impounds for taxes, but not insurance. Excuse me. The maximum conforming loan amount is listed right there at $548,250. That is set by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which do 95% of all loans, throughout the United States. On a 2-unit, it's a little bit higher. Then they have a super conforming for certain areas. You can go up to $822,375 for a single family, and $1,053,000 for a 2-unit. Adjustable rate mortgages are offered. I have not seen one in 8 years because the interest rates on fixed rates are so low. All right. Okay, let's move along here. Any loan that is above the super conforming of 822,375 to over $1 million, up to and over $1 million, is called a jumbo loan. And those, and you'll see the parameters listed there. Maximum 80%, a lot of things we talked about in the others, but it has its own set of parameters, which I don't need to read through those for you. One thing I do want to point out on the bottom of this, it says rate and terms are subject to change without notice. For most current mortgage rates, visit the website, our website, and it's updated on a daily basis. Okay. Investment properties, you might be interested, maybe not, but the guidelines are laid out here, the same. We go 70 75%, all fixed rates. It's, pretty sure that most of you that have probably signed up for this are not looking for investment properties if you're a first-time home buyer, right? And there are, of course, other requirements that are stipulated with that, which you can always give me a call if you have any questions on that. Right? We offer other programs. We're running a promotion on this at the present time. If you came in with a low loan to value, you wanted to take out another, have a low reserve, you take out a home equity line of credit up to 80%. And that, I have a whole nother presentation on that. But right now we're currently waiving the $299 processing fee on that one. All right. Well, guess what time it is? We did it. If you have any questions, that